Hello everyone, welcome to my channel Bold and Beautiful today. After Liam's tumor recovery, Grace vanishes and hides with Luna. Grace Buckingham's defrocked ex-husband, Reese Buckingham, is equally as unscrupulous as Grace. For financial gain, she has so tampered with Liam Spencer's tumor condition. Is she going to get what she deserves? Supporters demand Grace get punished. We believe that she fabricated the narrative of Liam's fatal brain tumor from the beginning. What was the reason? Her motivation today is greed, if she ever had one. Bill Spencer happily responded, "How much?" after she persuaded him to pay millions to save his son. If they had the resources, what other parent wouldn't? Grace's complex plan. Then how did the century's biggest scammer, mild-mannered Grace, pull it off? Since she is a doctor, it would be easy for her to show off scans of other patients, even one with an inoperable brain mass. Yes, you say, but what about Liam's deteriorating health? We would blame that on the harmful medicines Mom was giving him. Sometimes good doctors turn terrible. However, do you believe that Grace was more like Reese than anyone ever realized, or was she always Nurse Nightingale? Liam's tumor was invented by Grace. Regarding the scalpel that was used to Liam's shaved head, you might be curious. Since we didn't witness anything further, we presume that she nicked him sufficiently to require stitches and is now marketing a miraculous remedy. Whether Grace is working with Reese Buckingham is an intriguing subject at this time. Although Grace may have no other option, fans can sense that she feels under pressure and even guilty about what she is doing. If she doesn't carry out this evil plot to mess up a healthy patient, what if her kids Paris or Zoe Buckingham are in danger? Who has authority over Grace? Ultimately, the list of Grace's victims continues to expand. Thankfully, Liam's fate hasn't been revealed to the children yet, and I hope Logan and Steffi Forrester are exhausted by it. Don't worry, Bill will ensure that Grace is held accountable for her offenses. Is it significant, though, that he stepped in to get Luna Nozawa's pardon for her crimes? However, perhaps Lee feels sorry for poor Grace and assigns her a bed adjacent to Luna's? Did Bill Spencer get duped by Grace Buckingham? Following his top-secret, multi-million-dollar brain tumor surgery, Liam Spencer will be recovering. Grace Buckingham saved the day and performed a miracle on Liam Spencer, Bill Spencer's kid, who was initially told he wouldn't live and that the tumor was incurable. Or did she? When something seems too good to be true, it usually is. Was Dollar Bill recently duped out of $1 million by Dr. Buckingham? Read on to find out. Below are spoilers for what will happen next on CBS's Bold and the Beautiful. Bill Spencer decided to do whatever it took to attempt to save his son Liam after learning that he had a tumor and that his prognosis was bleak. However, did Dr. Grace Buckingham sell the millionaire a Trojan horse by taking advantage of his desperate situation? Did Dollar Bill play a supporting role? It's really strange that Liam Spencer couldn't be saved, but Grace managed to do it after Bill arrived with $1 million. Dr. Buckingham didn't mind, but no sane doctor would do such a surgery immediately following a shooting. Even more dubious was the fact that Grace performed the surgery in a private setting when no one was looking, took Liam to Bill's estate to recuperate, and released him before he had even woken up. According to previews for Bold and Beautiful, Grace will disappear following the procedure, and Dr. John Finnegan will start to wonder what she did specifically when Liam was being operated on. Finn conducts research. Finn can undertake tests to determine whether Liam's cancer has disappeared and to discover if surgery was even done. Liam might still die if Grace Buckingham simply defrauded Bill Spencer, and she would have $1 million from a furious man. She's in the wind, which is understandable. Do you believe that Grace actually helped Liam Spencer recover? Or did she do something sneaky and steal the money? Liam Spencer's seemingly miraculous recovery from a terminal brain tumor isn't just relief, it's the deafening void left by the sudden, suspicious disappearance of Dr. Grace Buckingham, the architect of that very miracle. Gone without a trace, leaving behind a trail of shattered trust, manipulated lives, and millions of dollars extracted under the most heart-wrenching pretenses, Grace hasn't merely stepped away, she's vanished into the ether, a fugitive from the devastating consequences of her own elaborate, heartless con. Her flight, occurring precisely when Liam awakens lucid and Bill Spencer, his desperate father, begins demanding tangible proof of the impossible cure she peddled, screams of guilt, confirming the darkest suspicions swirling in Los Angeles. Grace Buckingham isn't a savior, she's a predator cloaked in a lab coat, a master manipulator whose moral bankruptcy rivals, and perhaps even surpasses, that of her infamous, defrocked ex-husband, Reese Buckingham. This isn't just a case of a doctor gone rogue, it's a meticulously orchestrated symphony of deceit played upon the heartstrings of a grieving family, where Grace weaponized her medical expertise and exploited Bill Spencer's limitless wealth and paternal desperation, not to heal, but to plunder, proving herself every bit as morally bankrupt and fundamentally untrustworthy as the disgraced Reese. Her vanishing act is the final, damning act in a performance where she played the compassionate healer while secretly orchestrating Liam's terrifying decline and subsequent salvation, a decline she likely induced through carefully administered, debilitating drugs designed to mimic the horrific progression of a non-existent tumor, transforming her from Nurse Nightingale into a chillingly efficient poisoner exploiting the very vulnerabilities she was sworn to mend. The question haunting everyone isn't just where she is, but how she managed to pull off this audacious fraud right under their noses, manipulating scans, symptoms, and ultimately, slicing into a healthy man's skull under the pretense of life-saving surgery, only to flee when the ruse threatened immediate exposure, leaving Liam physically scarred, psychologically traumatized, and a family reeling from the betrayal. The sheer audacity of Grace's scheme is staggering in its cold calculation. As a physician, access to medical imaging was her key weapon. Fabricating Liam's inoperable tumor required nothing more sophisticated than presenting scans belonging to another, tragically ill patient, a simple, terrifyingly plausible switch for someone with her access and authority. Easy peasy, as cynics might grimly note. But the scans alone couldn't sustain the illusion Liam needed to sicken. His debilitating headaches, nausea, neurological flickers, and terrifying collapses weren't the cruel hand of fate, they were the calculated side effects of a pharmacological assault. Grace, the trusted healer, became the hidden poisoner, administering substances designed to ravage his body and mimic terminal decline. This deliberate infliction of suffering is perhaps the most monstrous aspect of her betrayal, revealing a capacity for cruelty that strips away any veneer of past decency. It forces a horrifying reappraisal. Was the gentle, supportive Grace we knew merely a mask? Was this darkness always there, simmering beneath the surface, a shared pathology with Reese that remained hidden until the perfect, lucrative opportunity arose? The scalpel that grazed Liam's shaved head wasn't a life-saving instrument, it was a prop in her grotesque theater. The lack of witnessed, substantive surgery, the conveniently obscured details of the procedure, point towards a superficial wound, just enough to create stitches, sell the narrative of intervention, and provide the stage dressing for her miracle cure narrative. This wasn't neurosurgery, it was butchery for profit, a physical violation layered upon the psychological torture she'd already inflicted. Motivation remains a complex, chilling puzzle. Was pure, unadulterated greed the initial spark? The sight of Bill Spencer, a billionaire patriarch frantic to save his son, uttering the magic words "how much?" That undeniable temptation, the sheer ease of extracting millions from a man who wouldn't hesitate to empty his coffers? It's a compellingly simple explanation. Grace saw an opportunity and seized it with ruthless ambition. Yet, the timing of her flight and the palpable, almost panicked guilt she exhibited towards the end hint at deeper, more desperate layers. Could Reese Buckingham, the master manipulator lurking in the shadows, be pulling her strings? Is Grace not the mastermind, but a pawn in a larger, even more sinister game orchestrated by her vengeful ex-husband, using her access and credibility as his instruments? Or perhaps the leverage is even more visceral, more terrifying. Are her daughters, Zoe and Paris Buckingham, the unwitting hostages in this nightmare? The theory gaining frightening traction is that Grace acted not, or not solely, out of greed, but out of coerced desperation. What if Reese, or another unknown, malevolent force, threatened Zoe or Paris, forcing Grace into this monstrous charade? Come through with this sick plan to botch up a healthy patient, the chilling directive might have been, or your daughters pay the price. This possibility paints Grace in a tragically complex light, still culpable, still monstrous in her actions towards Liam, but potentially driven by a perverse, twisted maternal instinct to protect her own children, making her both perpetrator and victim in Reese's, or another's, sadistic design. It transforms her disappearance from a cowardly escape into a potentially frantic bid to protect Zoe and Paris, perhaps even to confront the true puppeteer now that the scam is collapsing. Yet, regardless of the motive, greed, coercion, or a toxic blend of both, the trail of victims she leaves behind is extensive and profoundly wounded. The human cost of Grace's deception is catastrophic and reverberates through countless lives. Liam Spencer stands as the primary victim, his body subjected to unnecessary, harmful drugs and invasive procedures, his mind traumatized by the belief he was dying, and now shattered by the revelation that his suffering was manufactured. The psychological scars may far outlast the physical ones. Bill Spencer, manipulated out of millions through the cruelest exploitation of a father's love, is consumed by volcanic rage and humiliation. His desire for vengeance isn't just about the money, it's about the violation of his trust and the deliberate torture inflicted upon his son. Hope Logan and Steffi Forrester endured agonizing months believing the father of their children was dying. Their grief, their difficult decisions about how to break the news to Kelly and Beth, the emotional toll on their own complex relationship, all of it was predicated on a lie. The relief of Liam's survival is now poisoned by the bitterness of betrayal and the horrifying knowledge that his suffering was caused, not cured, by the woman they trusted. The children, thankfully shielded thus far, face a future where the truth of this traumatic period must eventually be revealed. The collateral damage extends to the medical community's reputation and the very foundation of trust patients must place in their doctors, eroded by Grace's grotesque violation of her oath. Bill Spencer's vow that Grace will pay for her crimes is a foregone conclusion, his resources and fury are limitless. He will move heaven and earth to hunt her down. However, his credibility as an agent of pure justice is inherently compromised by his own history of ruthless manipulation and, crucially, by his recent intervention securing a pardon for Luna Nozawa. Luna, guilty of her own significant crime, stealing the Forrester IPO design, was spared prison because Bill deemed it useful or necessary. This precedent hangs heavy over Grace's fate. Will Bill pursue Grace with the same relentless fury, or does his capacity for pragmatic, self-serving mercy extend even to the woman who tortured his son? Or perhaps justice takes an even more ironic, unexpected turn? Could Dr. Lee Finnegan, witnessing the wreckage and potentially uncovering layers of coercion involving Reese or threats to Zoe and Paris, feel a flicker of unexpected pity? Might Lee, of all people, offer Grace not a prison cell, but a stark, guarded room at the mental health facility where Luna currently resides? The image is darkly poetic, Grace Buckingham, the disgraced doctor who faked a tumor and drugged a healthy man, finding her final refuge not in freedom or a maximum security prison, but in a sterile room next to Luna Nozawa, the young woman whose own crime Bill conveniently erased. It's a fate almost too ironic to contemplate, two women who caused immense damage through deception, hidden away together, one pardoned by the whim of a billionaire, the other potentially confined by a twisted form of mercy, both living testaments to the complex, often corruptible, nature of justice in a world where power and secrets dictate outcomes far more than simple right and wrong. Grace disappeared after the miracle, but the shadow she cast, of greed, fear, manipulation, and profound betrayal, stretch long and dark over Los Angeles, and the reckoning, whether delivered by Bill's wrath, Lee's unexpected compassion, or the unseen hand of Reese Buckingham, is only just beginning. Her hiding place, whether with Luna or elsewhere, is merely a temporary pause in a scandal destined to explode with devastating force. Bill Spencer's palatial estate crackled not with its usual undercurrent of ruthless business deals, but with a desperate, primal fear. His son, Liam Spencer, the often tortured soul caught perpetually in the crossfire of love and family loyalty, faced an enemy no Spencer fortune could initially intimidate, a supposedly inoperable, terminal brain tumor. The prognosis delivered by faceless, nameless specialists was a death sentence etched in cold, clinical terms. Survival was impossible, the tumor's location a fortress no surgeon dared breach. Bill Spencer, Dollar Bill, the titan who commanded boardrooms and bent cities to his will, found himself utterly powerless, his vast wealth reduced to meaningless paper against the grim reality of losing a son. It was into this abyss of despair that Dr. Grace Buckingham materialized, not just as a physician, but as a purported angel of mercy wielding a scalpel of salvation. She offered hope where none existed, whispering of a radical, experimental procedure, a miracle hidden in her skilled hands, capable of achieving the impossible, excising the inoperable. Bill, gripped by paternal desperation eclipsing all his legendary cynicism, seized this fragile lifeline with the fervor of a drowning man, agreeing instantly to her exorbitant, top-secret demand, $1 million in cash. The surgery, shrouded in unprecedented secrecy, was performed not in the sterile, monitored environment of a renowned hospital, but at an undisclosed location, a medical black site chosen by Grace herself. Against all logic, especially following a chaotic shooting incident that should have heightened caution, she operated. And, against the original dire predictions, Liam emerged alive, the tumor declared vanquished. He was whisked away, still unconscious, not to a recovery room under observation, but directly to Bill's mansion to mend. Grace Buckingham, the architect of this medical miracle, then vanished like smoke, leaving only a hefty bank transfer and a mountain of unsettling questions in her wake. The triumphant narrative of a life saved now curdles under the harsh light of scrutiny, whispering a darker, more insidious possibility. Did Dr. Grace Buckingham, under the guise of a medical savior, execute the most audacious con of Bill Spencer's life, exploiting a father's love for a cool $1 million? The stench of suspicion surrounding Grace Buckingham's actions is potent and multifaceted, each aspect amplifying the next into a crescendo of doubt. The most glaring red flag is the sheer, breathtaking convenience of her solution. Liam's condition was universally deemed hopeless by medical consensus, a death warrant signed by science itself. Yet, the instant Bill Spencer, a man whose name is synonymous with unimaginable wealth, arrives clutching a suitcase containing $1 million in cash, Dr. Buckingham miraculously discovers a viable, albeit highly risky, surgical path? The timing reeks of opportunism, a classic hallmark of the confidence trick where the solution appears precisely when the mark is at their most vulnerable and the financial incentive is irresistibly presented. It plays directly into the oldest adage, if it sounds too good to be true, it almost certainly is. Then there's the appalling breach of medical ethics and protocol surrounding the surgery itself. Performing a complex, life-or-death brain surgery immediately after a traumatic shooting incident is unfathomable. Hospitals operate under strict protocols, resources are stretched, staff are stressed, and the environment is inherently unstable. No surgeon in their right mind, as the spoilers aptly note, would prioritize an elective, albeit critical, experimental procedure in such chaos unless driven by motives far removed from patient welfare. The choice of venue deepens the murk. Operating at a secret location completely removes any oversight, any peer review, any verifiable record of what actually transpired in that operating room. It eliminates witnesses, sterilizes the chain of evidence, and places the entire narrative solely in the hands of Dr. Buckingham. There is no surgical log, no nursing notes from an independent team, no anesthesiologist's report, only Grace's word that the surgery she described actually took place and was successful. This secrecy is the perfect smokescreen for a scam. Furthermore, discharging an unconscious patient who has just undergone major brain surgery, bypassing standard post-operative monitoring entirely, is medically negligent to the point of being criminal. It defies every principle of patient safety. Brain surgery carries immense risks: swelling, bleeding, infection, seizures, neurological deficits. Monitoring in a controlled environment is paramount. Rushing Liam to Bill's mansion, however luxurious, before he even regained consciousness, wasn't just reckless, it was an act that severed any potential for immediate, independent verification of his post-operative state or the surgery's actual effects. It ensured Liam was isolated, under Bill's care, and emotional bias, not under professional medical scrutiny. And now, the final, damning piece, Grace Buckingham's immediate disappearance. If she had genuinely performed a groundbreaking, life-saving miracle, why flee? Why not bask in the glory, publish the findings, anonymized if necessary, secure her place in medical history, and likely garner even more lucrative offers? Her vanishing act screams of guilt. It suggests someone who knows the facade is fragile, that the truth will inevitably surface, and that facing Bill Spencer when that happens, especially if Liam's condition deteriorates or the cure proves illusory, would be exceedingly dangerous. She isn't just absent, she's in the wind, a fugitive from the potential fallout of her own actions. The $1 million, the secret surgery, the unethical discharge, the disappearance, these aren't just coincidences, they form a near-perfect blueprint for an elaborate, high-stakes medical con. Enter Dr. John Finnegan, the voice of reason and medical integrity crashing into this carefully constructed, potentially fraudulent narrative. Finn's arrival on the scene, as hinted by spoilers, is the first real threat to Grace Buckingham's house of cards. Unlike Bill, blinded by paternal hope and relief, Finn approaches the situation with a clinician's skepticism and the tools of modern medicine. His investigation is crucial and multi-pronged. Firstly, he can objectively assess Liam's current neurological status. Does Liam exhibit deficits consistent with major brain surgery? Are there surgical scars? Is his cognitive function, motor skills, speech, and vision aligning with someone who supposedly had a deadly tumor excised? A miraculous recovery with zero side effects would itself be suspicious. More importantly, Finn has the power of diagnostics. Advanced imaging, MRIs, CT scans, can definitively show whether brain surgery was even performed. These scans reveal tissue changes, resection cavities, scar tissue formation, and the absence, or presence, of the original tumor mass. They are an undeniable, visual record. If the scans show no evidence of surgical intervention in the area where the tumor was supposedly located, the entire story collapses instantly. Grace Buckingham couldn't fake the physical changes in Liam's brain tissue that a real surgery would leave behind. Furthermore, Finn can run tests to determine if the cancer itself is truly gone. Blood tests for specific markers, advanced imaging looking for metabolic activity, like PET scans, and biopsies if necessary, these can confirm or deny remission. If the inoperable tumor is still present, or shows signs of growth, it proves the surgery was either never performed or was a complete failure disguised as success. Finn's medical expertise is the kryptonite to Grace's potential deception. His findings will be objective, data-driven, and impossible for Bill to ignore, no matter how much he wants to believe in the miracle. Finn's probing questions: what exactly did she do? What technique did she use? Where are the records? Why the secrecy? Are the first steps towards piercing the veil of secrecy Grace so carefully erected? The potential fallout of Finn's investigation confirms the con is catastrophic, a Shakespearean tragedy fueled by greed and desperation. For Liam Spencer, the implications are horrifying. His relief at survival would shatter into the terror of knowing the death sentence still hangs over him. The precious time bought by his father's $1 million wasn't used for genuine treatment but for a cruel charade. His physical and emotional recovery, already arduous after believing he'd been saved, would be poisoned by betrayal and the renewed specter of mortality. Every headache, every moment of fatigue, would be reinterpreted as a sign of the tumor's relentless progress, now unchecked by any real intervention. The psychological toll would be immense. For Bill Spencer, the revelation would be an atomic blast of rage and humiliation. Dollar Bill, the master manipulator, the man who prides himself on never being played, would discover he was not just fooled, but ruthlessly exploited at his absolute weakest point, his love for his son. His desperation was weaponized against him. The $1 million, a sum insignificant to his wealth but symbolizing his ultimate vulnerability, would become a taunting monument to his gullibility. Bill's wrath is legendary, directed towards someone who endangered Liam's life and stole from him under the vilest pretense. It would be apocalyptic. He would mobilize every resource, legal, financial, clandestine, to hunt Grace Buckingham down. The demand for restitution would be the least of her worries. Bill would seek utter annihilation. And for Grace Buckingham, if she is indeed a fraudster, her fate hinges on the speed of Finn's discovery and the depth of Bill's reach. Her $1 million payday would be worthless if she's constantly looking over her shoulder, living in fear of Bill's retribution. She would be exposed as a predator who preyed on the dying and their grieving families, destroying her reputation irrevocably and facing potential criminal charges of fraud, grand theft, and practicing medicine without due care. or potentially without a license, if the scam runs that deep. Her disappearance suggests she anticipated this, but outrunning Bill Spencer's fury is a near impossible task. The angry man she owes isn't just financially slighted, he's a vengeful father whose deepest fears were cynically manipulated.